Because not everybody's an expert in buying something. You know, someone negotiates better than someone else. I mean, do you ever have a family member that's going to buy a car?
Yes.
Do they bring someone who knows something about cars with them?
Majority of the time they do, because if they don't, they go school.
Right, you bring an expert. So, you know, organizations of that size, they develop experts, you know, in how to buy different commodities and different services, so they get the best value and the best contract terms and the lowest price. You know, professional positions in those kind of organizations typically require bachelor's degrees. They encourage master's degrees. You know, you always get a leg up. In my experiences, those who got ahead either had it when they got in or were pursuing it, you know, in the evening on some kind of continuing education basis. A lot of these organizations will, you know, help fund the master's degree. So the bachelor's degree can be expensive. A master's degree even more so, but a lot of companies, you know, help fund that kind of benefit. So, you know, as you're doing your job search, as you target, you know, different organizations, you know, at the appropriate time, you know, those are the kinds of questions to ask in terms of, you know, how the benefits look. You know, do they sponsor people for those kind of things? Sometimes it's grade-based, meaning I can remember at Bristol, at one point they gave you all the money up front, and then later on they gave you the money after you completed the course, but you got 100% reimbursement for an A, 75% reimbursement for a B, and so on and so forth. But you're also required to stay with the company for a short period of time, you know, a year or two, so that they could get some of the value of the education. Otherwise you had to pay them back. But I think one of the cultural statements I see in a lot of organizations is training and learning is never over. The procurement organization I was with required 10 years of education per year that the company would find for you, they would pay for, but nevertheless, you had to sit in a classroom or go to a conference or a convention for 10 days a year because you're expected to perpetually improve your skills. You know, what you know today is not going to be enough to do that job well tomorrow because the competition is working just as hard as you. You know, they want more money out of you and you want to pay them less. So it's a very competitive market out there.
What's starting salary?
Of what? I believe right now it's $45,000, and I believe it. They just changed it dramatically in the last year or two, and I think after 5 years for both policemen and firemen, it can be about $100,000 after 5 years. No. Oh yeah. You're gonna get seniority pay plus night differential, plus you know, more seniority and overtime. You can make $100,000 a couple.
Does the risk of being a cop outweigh the benefit?
Yeah.
Because like I would consider it, but I don't want to get killed.
Well, you know, let me tell you one thing that happened different. You know, after my injury, two things occurred. One was that the police department went on a big campaign and ultimately instituted a requirement for bulletproof vests. When I was out in the street, there were no bulletproof vests.
They stupid people still able to walk around with guns. I should have
If I had a vest, it might have been different. Might not have been different because they got shot in the neck too. But
it covers your back. Don't your vest cover your back?
not your neck. You know,
They should make it a body.
vests, you're exposed here, you're exposed in your armpit, you're exposed in your neck. There's a lot of exposure. You're exposed in your legs, you got your carotid arteries here. The most vulnerable spaces are covered, but they're not full protection by any means. The hours of a police officer? Well, it's pretty flexible. I mean, you're going to work weekends and you're going to work holidays. You know, more often than not. You know, the city never sleeps, right? Isn't every cop on duty on New Year's Eve? Don't expect to go to a party. Well, expect to go to a party. It's going to be at Times Square. That's the only thing. They're entitled to almost 6 weeks of vacation per year, plus holidays. They retire after 20 years on the job, if they choose. So, you know, we talked about retirement being 60, 65.
66, but with y'all can retire just a little bit earlier.
Well, you can retire at 40, 45.
Yeah.
You know, if you choose to, and then you can embark on your second career. You know, if you like. So there's a lot of flexibility. I think, has anyone noticed a campaign to do more recruiting for the fire department?
Yeah.
There's a real emphasis on it. It's a you know, it's a good career. Very different culture than the police department. You know, in many respects, but equally hazardous.
Yeah.
But it pays the equivalent.
Do you need like a college degree or something like to join the fire department?
I don't believe so, no. But you certainly need a
High school diploma, GED.
you know, you need a high school GED, you need a clean record for the most part. That's yeah, well, you've got to pass several tests. You've got to pass a written test, right? You've got to pass a physical test, and you've got to pass a you know, a background check. And they give psychological checks, you know, tests. You know, are you equipped for the pressures of the job? You know, or not. The dropout rate or the failure rate in the academies is pretty modest. 9 out of 10 make it, so you know they're not screening people out and throwing them to the wind.
Okay, can you be a cop with the criminal background?
Some modest convictions, yeah. And I don't know if anybody noticed last week there was a big announcement by Mayor Bloomberg. He's got a new group forming that's very concerned with unemployment rates in the inner city, and they're going to be putting together a lot of initiatives to get people their GEDs. Overlooked through many phases of municipal employment, a focus on criminal backgrounds. Clearly, if you're a violent felon, that's a different story. But you know, if you made a mistake in your youth, it will more likely be overlooked in the future, more so than it is now. I don't think all the details have been worked out, but is that the essence of the announcement?
Yeah, it's called Jobs Plus, and it's a program to amp up job opportunities for Black and Latinos in public housing units. So I'm trying to focus on that. A lot of money.
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of emphasis on that, but I think they're going to be a bit more forgiving on the background checks than they had been in the past. But you know, good career. I mean, but you got to remember something when you talk about police department careers. Not everybody's on patrol. There's a lot of other specialties, you know, within there. You know, but you've got to go through patrol to get there, right? You've got to do your time in the street. There's no substitute for it. There's no way you're gonna escape that unless your father or uncle is chief and they do something real special for you. But generally, even they want you to do some time in the street. They'll pick the right precinct for you. But you know, there's forensics. You know, there's crime scene investigation. There's mounted. There's aviation. There's technical unit out in Fort Totten.
Can you tell me the difference between crime scene investigation and forensics?
Well, I mean, crime scene is really, you know, on the street. I think forensic is more when it transitions into the lab, you know, and they really do the, you know, the DNA testing and the confirmation on fingerprints and, you know, all those kind of things.
So you say you wanted to go back to community college, so you wanted to go back to your solution?
Would I? Oh no, my career's over. I probably know only 2 or 3 cops to this day who are still on the job, because that was I got appointed in 1973, so virtually everybody's retired. Mandatory retirement is 63 years old. So even if you want to stay forever, you can't stay forever. You've got to go.
Why would you stay forever?
Well, some people they just it becomes part of their DNA. That's what they do with their life. They go there every day. But you know, there's a lot of career options to explore. I think the foundation items are, of course, you know, hard work and an education.
Mr. Polk, can I do what am I saying? That is exciting.
Any other questions, thoughts?
What was your federal job?
U.S. Customs Service briefly. And the reason I left there was because I didn't have enough to do. You know, I was what was called an import specialist.
Oh, you wanted to work.
So I would examine manifests of things coming in on boats and selectively have them, you know, examined by customs agents to see if they were what they said they were, if they weighed what they said they were, if there was no contraband in there, that kind of stuff. But I was a bit I wasn't challenged there.
Yeah, I was opening people's bags. Oh, you like challenged?
I would send someone to open the bags, or I would witness them being open. I didn't have to actually get my hands dirty.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna say that.
But I was responsible for authorizing it. I'm semi-retired now. I'm 58. But I've been working for 45 years, and
Yeah, you need to give it a rest.
the job that I had was relocating to New Jersey. They offered to keep me in a hotel down there 5 days a week, and I said, no, I don't want to be in a hotel in Princeton for 5 days a week. So, yeah, it's hard to stay in a hotel all the time. It's boring. It may sound exciting the first week, but the menus get repetitious, and it's no fun over time.
So when you were in that hotel, who pays for they pay for your?
Oh yeah,
They
the
pay for
company pays
everything.
for everything.
Is
Food,
it
meal.
like a nice hotel or was it a?
So they put you in a 5-star hotel, right?
No, well, in this part of New Jersey, it was a courtyard hotel. Nice, not 5-star, but nice. But
Yeah, have pools and stuff?
you got to remember, I was managing the hotel contracts and trying to save the company money. So I don't want anybody staying in 5-star hotels.
Oh,
Why not?
But we want them in, because we want the money, at a pharmaceutical company, you want to spend the least amount of money on that kind of stuff so you can spend the most on research and development of new drugs.
That makes sense.
That's what makes your business grow. If you spend it here, you can't spend it in the laboratory. If you don't spend it in the laboratory, you don't grow your business. You know, and these are drugs that deal with cancer, that deal with AIDS, you know, hypertension, diabetes, you know, important stuff. So we you know, you always pick a hotel that's going to be safe for the employees, that's going to be convenient. So, you know, we're not putting them in Motel 6. We didn't put employees in Motel 6s. We didn't put them in unsafe neighborhoods. But we also didn't go the 5-star route. Now, there are companies in the investment banking companies like Goldman Sachs. Those employees are treated royally. They stay in the 5-star hotel. But remember who's paying. Ultimately, the client is paying for that.
What are they just?
Well, they're charging the client. I'm traveling on your behalf and I'm paying it. So if I were the client, I'd say, hey, why are we, you know, spending so much? I mean, I saw departments in my company. One department would spend $40 on dinner. Another department would spend $140. So a lot of different cultural elements to it.
How important do you believe interning is?
I'm sorry?
How important is interning?
Interning is important. I mean, we had interns typically from 3 primary schools. One was Rutgers, one was Arizona State, and the other was Penn State. And they would come in for 6 months at a time. And I didn't have a lot of people who reported to me, but I constantly had interns assisting. And the work on them was very demanding. But it also led to my success because I became very reliant on them. But they had to have good analytical skills, good PC skills, good communication skills. I mean, you don't overexpose them, you don't leave them out there vulnerable. But you know, the more independent they can be, the more successful, the more they're going to grow, and the better you're going to look.
what, when the interns go to the police station, if they do that, what do the interns do? Like, y'all take them with y'all or something?
I'm not sure about I mean, they've got the police cadet program, right? I think that's kind of an internship program, right? Yeah, that would be, so there's a, you know, if you went to the NYPD.com website, you'd probably see something called the cadet program. If you do research on that, that's kind of...
My name is Sally Frischberg, and I'm a Holocaust survivor. As a child, I lived through one of the worst nightmares, the Nazi Holocaust. What I fear most is that we will wait too long before we help our young people understand the need to mobilize against the next tyranny. Support Words of Bonds, which retells stories like mine.
To learn more, visit wordsofbonds.com. That's wordsofbonds.com.